No, the one near the sound booth. How that works.
Hello, hello.
Okay, let's see if it works. Bingo.
You're welcome.
But I don't mind it all at all.
How about we're going to give you the baptism of Jesus? So as a great, since you are life of Jesus people, life of Jesus. You're going to take this and light it from the Christ candle and light one of there'll be 7 unlit candles. Zoom, but I know some
We
people.
have Roberta and Ron.
Roberta and Ron, okay, we'll say hi to Roberta and Ron.
Yeah. I will do it, but prelude is so short, I won't know.
Well, let's do that.
Okay. So sacred head now wounded.
Thank you. Welcome to our Good Friday service here at Church of the Good Shepherd and online on YouTube and on Zoom. Glad you're here with us, Ron and Roberta. So today we're going to tell the story of Jesus, the story of his life and his death through the scriptures. And thank you for those of you who've agreed to do some readings for us today. I'll show you one more time. If there's no wick at the top, you slide this little lever a little bit up. So you know it was working so well. Okay, there we go. And light based off of a candle that's already lit, and light a candle that is not lit. If you have a reading that's after our hymn, Were You There When They Crucified My Lord, that's on, or the second part of the service, you'll put out a candle, and to do that you put the bell over the top of the candle and wait for a second because it takes it a while. And after each reading there will also be the tolling of a bell, and at the end of the service there will be a long tolling of bells, and we'll depart in silence. So let's open with prayer. Ever-present God, on this Good Friday evening, our world is engulfed in shadows as we remember the story of Jesus' life and death. We confess that we want to push the fast forward button on this familiar story because it hurts to think of the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. It hurts to imagine Jesus abandoned or suffering. Help us find our place in this story, to both feel the pain that is there, but also to not lose hope for the resurrection. Help us recognize in this story the pain of the world, of faithless decisions, betrayal, and injustice. Strengthen us with your courage and offer glimpses of hope in the shadows of death. Amen. So the candles we'll light today are actually from an Advent candle tree that was carved by Hillard Gerhard many years ago. So there's a candle for every day in Advent. And so today we're going to light some of the remaining unlit candles as we remember the story of Jesus' birth and his baptism and his life and ministry, beginning with this beautiful passage from the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things were made through him. In him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness shall not overcome it.
In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a young woman engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The woman's name was Mary. He came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, God is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. Then the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." While Mary and Joseph were in Bethlehem, the time came for her to be delivered, and she gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no place for them in the inn.
From the first verse of Mark, first chapter of Mark. When the time came, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. When he came up out of the water, immediately he saw the heavens opened up and the Spirit descending upon him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my beloved child. With you I am well pleased."
Jesus withdrew in a boat to a lonely place apart, but the crowds followed him on foot. When Jesus went ashore, he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the day is over. Send these people away. Let them buy food for themselves." But Jesus said, "They don't need to go home. Give them something to eat." They said to him, "We only have 5 loaves here and 2 fish." And he said, "Bring them to me." Then he ordered the crowds to sit down. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed and broke and gave the loaves to the disciples. And the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of the broken pieces left over. And those who ate were about 5,000 men, plus women and children.
Luke 6:17-22. Coming down off the mountain with them, he stood on a plain, surrounded by disciples, and was soon joined by a huge congregation from all over Judea and Jerusalem, even from the seaside towns of Tyre and Sidon. They had come both to hear him and to be cured of their diseases. Those disturbed by evil spirits were healed. Everyone was trying to touch him. So much energy was surging from him. So many people were healed. Then he spoke. You are blessed when you have lost it all. God's kingdom is there for the finding. You are blessed when you are ravenously hungry. Then you're ready for the messianic meal. You are blessed when tears flow freely. Joy comes in the morning. Count yourself blessed every time someone cuts you down or throws you out, every time someone smears or blackens your name to discredit me. What it means is the truth is too close for comfort. You can be glad when that happens, for even though they don't like it, I do. All heaven applauds. And know that you are in good company. My preachers and witnesses have always been treated like this.
This is more teachings of Jesus. Jesus said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet, I tell you, every Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you? Do not keep striving for what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying. Instead, strive to build the reign of God."
Luke 10, 25 to 37. Just then, a religion scholar stood up with a question to test Jesus. "Teacher, "What do I need to do to get eternal life?" He answered, "What is written in God's law? How do you interpret it?" He said, "That you love God with all your passion and prayer and muscle and intelligence, and that you love your neighbor as well as you do yourself." "Good answer," said Jesus. "Do it and you will live." Looking for a loophole, he asked, "And just how would you define neighbor?" Jesus answered by telling a story. Once there was a man traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. On the way, he was attacked by robbers. They took his clothes, they beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Luckily, a priest was on his way down the same road, but when he saw him, he angled across to the other side. Then a Levite, religious man, showed up. He also avoided the injured man. A Samaritan traveling the road came on him. He gave him first aid, disinfecting and bandaging his wounds. Then he lifted him onto his donkey and led him to an inn and made him comfortable. In the morning, he took 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, "Take good care of him. If it costs any more, put it on my bill. I will pay on my way back." What do you think? Which of the 3 became a neighbor to the man attacked by the robbers? "The one who treated him kindly," the religion scholar responded. And Jesus said, "Go and do the same."
This reading is from
Luke chapter 12, verses 49 through 53. Jesus said to them, "I've come to start a fire on this earth. How I wish it were blazing right now. I've come to change everything, turn everything right side up. How I long for it to be finished. Do you think I came to smooth things over and make everything nice? Not so. I've come to disrupt and confront."
Let's prepare now to move from Jesus' life to his final moments and his death by singing together. We're going to sing it twice. "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?" And the words are on the screen.
When
Denial foretold in Matthew 26:31 through 35. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples.
Matthew chapter 26, verses 36 through 46. Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee and began to be grieved and agitated. Then he said to them, "I am deeply grieved, even to death. Remain here and stay awake with me." And going a little further, he threw himself on the ground and prayed, "My God, is it possible? If it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Let there be another way. What is it that you want, God? What is your will?"
Matthew 26:47 through 67. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd with swords and clubs, the chief priests and the elders of the people. Judas had given them a sign, saying, "The one I will kiss is the man. Arrest him." At once he came up to Jesus and said, "Greetings, Rabbi," and kissed him. Jesus said to him, "Friend, do what you are here to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. Suddenly, Peter drew his sword, cut off the ear of one of the guards. But Jesus said to him, "Peter, put away your sword, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword." Jesus then said to the crowds, "Have you come out with swords and clubs to arrest me as though I were a bandit? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not arrest me. What is different now?" Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
Matthew 26:57 to 68. Those who arrested Jesus took him to the house where the scribes and the elders had gathered. Peter followed at a distance and sat inside the courtyard in order to see what would happen. The chief priests and the whole council were looking for false testimony against Jesus so that they might put him to death. But they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. At least 2 final witnesses came forward and said, "This man said, 'I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.'" One of the authorities stood up and said to Jesus, "Is this true? What is it that they testify against you?" But Jesus was silent. Then the high priest said, "I put you under oath. before the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus said to him, "You have said so." Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, "He has blasphemed. Why do we still need witnesses? You have heard his blasphemy. What is your verdict?" And they answered, "He deserves death." This comes from Matthew 26. Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a young woman came up to him and said, "You were also with Jesus." But he denied it, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." Another person saw him and said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it, and he swore, "I swear, I don't know that man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "We're sure you're one of them. Your Galilean accent betrays you." Then Peter began to curse, and he swore another oath. "I swear I do not know that man." At that moment, the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered what Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." At this realization, Peter left the courtyard and he wept bitterly.
Before Pilate, Matthew 27, 1 through 26. When morning came, all the chief priests and the elders of the people conferred together against Jesus in order to bring about his death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate the governor. When Jesus stood before the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You say so." Now a festival was happening in Jerusalem, and at the festival the governor was accustomed to releasing a prisoner for the crowd. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, "Whom do you want me to release to you, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who is called the Messiah?" While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, "Have nothing to do with that innocent man, for today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him." Some of the authorities manipulated the crowds into asking for Jesus Barabbas and have Jesus the Messiah killed. The governor again said to them, "Which of the 2 do you want me to release to you?" And they said, "Barabbas." Pilate said to them, "Then what should I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" All of them said, "Crucify him." When they asked why, "What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves." And after flogging Jesus, he handed him over to be crucified.
Mark 15, 21 to 37. The soldiers brought Jesus to Golgotha, meaning Skull Hill. They offered him a mild painkiller, wine mixed with myrrh, but he wouldn't take it, and they nailed him to the cross. They divided up his clothes and threw dice to see who would get them. They nailed him up at 9 o'clock in the morning. The charge against him, the King of the Jews, was scrawled across a sign. Along with him, they crucified 2 rebels, one to his right, the other to his left. People passing along the road jeered, shaking their heads in mock lament. You bragged that you could tear down the temple and then rebuild it in 3 days, so show us your stuff. Save yourself. If you were really God's son, come down from that cross. People mocked him. He saved others, but he can't save himself. Messiah, is he? Then let him climb down from that cross. We'll all become believers then. Even the men crucified alongside him joined in the mockery. At noon, the sky became extremely dark. The darkness lasted 3 hours. At 3 o'clock, Jesus groaned out of the depths, crying loudly, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus, with a loud cry, gave his last breath. At that moment, the temple curtain ripped right down the middle.
We're going to sing one more time, Were You There? When a military captain saw what happened, he honored God. This man was a good man and innocent. All who had come around as spectators to watch the show, when they saw what actually happened, they were overcome with grief and they left for home. The women who had followed Jesus from Galilee stood at a respectful distance and kept vigil. There was a man by the name of Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Jewish High Council, a man of good heart and good character, who lived in alert expectation of the kingdom of God. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. When Jesus was born, let's remember that he was wrapped in scraps of cloth and laid in a manger. At the end of his life, Joseph took scraps of linen and wrapped him and laid him in a tomb chiseled into the rock. Sundown was approaching and the Sabbath was just about to begin. And the women who had been companions of Jesus from Galilee followed along. They saw the tomb where Jesus' body was placed, but the sun was already down, and it was against their religion to care for a body on the Sabbath. So they returned home and prepared burial spices and perfumes for the next day. And then they rested on the Sabbath, as commanded, waiting for the dawn.